A vast quiet hangs over the world, as if the air itself is holding its breath, waiting for a story that has lived too long in silence, and today, that silence begins to lift like a curtain rising slowly in a forgotten theater, revealing the fragile glow of a single soul who once walked this earth with a heart soft enough to break and strong enough to keep beating anyway, though life never gave her the gentleness she deserved, and though she learned early that the world rarely pauses for the wounded, she kept walking through every dark place as if she carried her own light without ever realizing how bright it was. She was born in a town where mornings came early and hopes came late, where people looked out their windows at lives they wished they had, and she would watch them, wondering if she would grow up to be like them, yearning for dreams she could reach only with closed eyes, and she promised herself she would not end up waiting. She would not end up quiet, she would not let herself become another unspoken wish drifting through the air of a forgotten neighborhood. But life has its own way of testing the ones who dream the hardest, and she was tested young, tested often, tested brutally. She learned that love can turn into loss faster than a breath, and she learned that sometimes the people you trust most are the first to leave. She learned that the human heart is not a steady flame, but a shaking, fragile candle that must shield itself from every wind that tries to blow it out. There was a time when she would sit on the cold floor of her small room at night, looking at the shadows on the wall, imagining they were pieces of her future, moving silently, waiting for her to walk toward them, and she would whisper to herself that tomorrow would be different, tomorrow would be kind, tomorrow would finally make sense. But most tomorrows arrived like storms, and she walked through them, drenched, bruised, exhausted, yet still refusing to fall, because somewhere inside her a soft voice kept saying, keep going, keep breathing, you were made for more than this. She grew into a young woman with eyes that carried entire oceans of unsaid stories, and when she smiled, people felt warmth without understanding the storms she had weathered to keep that warmth alive. She moved through life like someone who had learned to hide her scars beneath grace and her fear beneath determination. She learned to work when she wanted to sleep, learned to rise when she wanted to vanish, learned to stand when her knees trembled with the weight of everything she never told anyone. But even the strongest hearts have limits, and one day, everything she had buried began to rise like forgotten ruins, surfacing after centuries. The old memories, the wounds, the unanswered questions, the aching loneliness, they all gathered inside her like heavy rain trapped in a cloud too full to hold on, and she broke quietly, not with screams, not with chaos, but with a soft, silent collapse, the kind that happens when a soul is too tired to keep pretending it is unbreakable. She stopped talking as much, she stopped laughing as easily. She spent long evenings staring out the window, watching the night settle over the world like a blanket, and she wondered if the universe noticed her at all, if anyone would ever understand how much strength she had used just to exist this far. She wondered if the world would change even a little if she disappeared like a fading note in a forgotten song. But fate moves in mysterious, quiet ways, and sometimes when the world feels darkest, it opens a door so small you almost miss it, and that door appeared for her in the form of a stranger who saw her not as someone fading, but as someone fighting. They spoke to her with a gentleness she had never known, offering no pity, only presence, and the smallest spark of connection flickered inside her, enough to remind her that she was still alive, still capable of being seen, still capable of being heard. Through that connection, she began to return to herself slowly, like dawn finding its way back after a long night. She learned that healing does not arrive like lightning, it arrives like a slow rising tide, touching each broken place, one moment at a time. She learned that she was allowed to feel pain without apology, allowed to rest without guilt, allowed to exist without proving her worth. Every second of every day she started walking outside again, feeling the wind touch her face, as if the world was welcoming her back. She listened to the birds she once ignored, and noticed how their fragile voices carried through the air. Without fear, she looked at the sky and realized she had spent too many years looking down. She sat by rivers, letting the sound of the water remind her that even the most relentless flow carves its own path, despite every obstacle in its way. And in that return to living, she discovered something she had never known before. She discovered that her brokenness was not a weakness but a map, each scar showing where she had fought, each tear showing where she had grown, each loss showing where she had learned to cherish what remained. She found a strength buried deep beneath years of survival, a strength quiet, steady, enduring, a strength that asked for nothing except the chance to keep going. She began to dream again. Not the fragile dreams of childhood, but the fierce dreams of someone who had been to the depths and refused to stay there. She dreamed of freedom, dreamed of creating a life shaped not by fear but by purpose, dreamed of becoming the woman she once searched for in the shadows of her own room. She had no map, but she had a heartbeat steady and determined, guiding her step by step into a future she was building with her own hands. But healing does not mean forgetting, and there were nights when memories returned like ghosts, tapping on the windows of her mind, nights when she felt small again, nights when she wondered if she had really changed at all, and on those nights, she cried softly, letting the tears fall like rain, cleansing her, releasing her, reminding her that strength is not the absence of pain. Strength is choosing to rise, even with pain in your chest. With time, she stopped asking why life had been harsh to her and began asking what she could make from everything she had survived, and the answer came not in a flash, but in a gentle knowing. She would use her story to guide others who felt alone. She would lend her voice to those who had lost theirs. She would shine a light for the ones who walked in darkness, believing they were unseen. She would become the very reminder she had once needed, a reminder that pain does not define you, loss does not end you, fear does not own you. She stood one day at the edge of a quiet hill, looking out at the world stretching endlessly before her, and she felt something she had not felt in years. She felt hope, not loud, not overwhelming, but quiet and steady, like a hand resting over her heart. She realized that for the first time, she was not waiting for someone to save her. She was choosing herself, she was choosing her future, she was choosing her life, and that choice changed everything. She walked forward into the world not as the broken girl she once was, but as the woman she had decided to become, a woman who understood that beauty grows from hardship, a woman who knew the worth of her own soul, a woman who carried her pain not as a burden but as proof that she had survived. She kept walking with quiet confidence, unshaken by storms, no longer afraid of shadows. Her steps, soft but certain, her heart open but guarded, her spirit no longer flickering but steadily glowing. And if you were to meet her now, you would see it instantly, the resilience in her eyes, the warmth in her voice, the courage in the way she stands. You would see someone who is not defined by the darkness she endured, but by the light she refused to let go of, someone who learned that even the most wounded heart can rise, even the most painful story can heal, even the quietest soul can become a guiding star for those who wander in their own nights. This is her journey, her return, her quiet revolution, her reminder to anyone listening that you too are stronger than everything that tried to break you, that you too can rebuild, that you too can rise into a life shaped not by what hurt you but by what you choose to become next, that your story is not over, that your future is waiting, and that even now, in this moment, a new beginning is breathing inside you, ready to unfold.